Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Valenti here with a very special edition of CTreySports One-on-One. I am joined today by the voice of the Grand Canyon Antelopes, the man, the myth, the legend, Barry Buetel. Barry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Sam. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, of course, of course. I say it's very well deserved, especially after your fantastic announcing last night as we were recording this. What a win! What a comeback for the Lopes over Montana State. Just
It,
what was that all like? Getting to call that amazing game.
it kind of epitomizes what sports is all about and why I had a passion for it. As a kid growing up with my dad being a sportscaster, I realized that any time that you showed up at a game, you just never know what that day is going to end up being like. Where maybe some other jobs they look a lot like they did yesterday, and they'll probably look a lot like they will tomorrow. 19 points was the deficit at the half. There wasn't a lot of positives. They were really getting outplayed by the Big Sky Conference reigning champions in Montana State, a team that it's going to be really interesting to follow throughout the course of the college basketball season. Great head coach in Danny Sprinkle, but man, did the Lopes respond, and they showed a lot of intestinal fortitude, and they came back and outscored the Bobcats 40-18 in the second half and went on to win it by 6.
Yes, absolutely. Just an amazing win. What did you find most impressive from the Lopes in this first game?
How resilient they came out, and I think they realized that they had to step it up. It was definitely not the caliber that they faced in their exhibition opener. This is the reigning conference champion, and they certainly, from a standpoint of being on their home court, needed to respond, and they came out and did so. And then you look at the leaders on the team, right, to kind of rally the troops, and that's Javon Blackshear Jr. He moved into 14th all time on the scoring list. Gabe McLaughlin, another local high school grad, just really impressive. He stepped up. And then, guys came off that were kind of unsung heroes and really provided a spark. Isaiah Shaw, who doesn't get a lot of minutes, he hit a big three. Kobe Knox had a huge block in limited minutes, both of those guys. And I think they kind of showed the rest of the bench that we're taking a seat for a little while. Hard work usually pays off when maybe talent doesn't work hard enough. And we saw the guys respond after that.
Of course. And then just when the comeback was happening, just seeing the energy from the building just increase, and the students are going nuts. I mean, it was just truly a magical night, I would say, in the history of GCU sports.
Yeah, I agree. I think the opening half, it was really a tale of two halves, obviously. And that first half, it might have been the worst first half of basketball that I've seen in my 10 years of the D1 era here at GCU. But that second half was, man, that was impressive. And this team's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, yes, for sure. And you've been able to call like so many sports events over your long career. This question might be a bit hard to answer just right now because it just happened. But if you could rank this all time, just of all the amazing events they've called, just where does this rank just right now?
I think because it was a season opener and maybe it wasn't, a championship game or a playoff matchup or, it's certainly, the outcome and what you look forward to the rest of the season. It definitely you have a different feeling than you did when you were thinking, wow, this is the team, this is how they're going to respond. And you were a little disappointed after the half. So yeah, it was definitely a huge, I don't know if I've ever been a part of a bigger comeback. Or witnessed one as a broadcaster. I was a broadcaster for 13 seasons in the National Hockey League, and then I was part of some pretty classic playoff matchups, including the Buffalo Sabres and the New Jersey Devils back in the early 90s when I think they ended up playing over 2 games before Dave Hannon scored against Brodeur and the Devils in a classic Dominic Hasek Brodeur matchup at about 2:30 in the morning.
And we will certainly be getting into that because you've been able to work with some really cool pro sports teams. We'll be getting into that a bit later, but let's take this back a bit towards the beginning. Just kind of about your background in broadcasting. Just how'd you get into it?
I mentioned earlier, growing up around my father. My father was a sportscaster, so I'd tag along, along with him on some road trips, and I was exposed to professional athletes from a very early age. And so from Harmon Killebrew with the Minnesota Twins to Bob Allison to Rod Carew, hockey players with the Minnesota North Stars at the time and the Minnesota Fighting Saints of the WHA. So I grew up around my father, around college athletics with the University of Minnesota. He called a number of different sports too, and that's probably why I enjoy calling various sports as well. So that's where it all started. That's where I realized that was maybe where my passion lies, because it was so much fun seeing him do his job and see the passion that he had. So that's kind of where it started early on for me.
Oh, that's so awesome that you got kind of that passion from your father, and you were able to share those experiences with him. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, he called the very first Minnesota North Star television broadcast in, I believe, 1967. I was selected as the Minnesota Wild radio color analyst. I also hosted their TV pregame show when they brought back the National Hockey League to my hometown and home state of Minnesota. And it was great. When my father was still alive, he was able to be there opening night and recognized on the ice with a number of other dignitaries. So that was definitely a big thrill for me to kind of go full circle and call the first NHL game just like he did back in the day.
Oh wow, that's incredible. That is honestly incredible. Now, I do have to say, as a Dallas Stars fan, I'm very thankful for Minnesota for
I bet you are. I
because
bet
the
you
Stars.
are. Yeah, Mr. Green is not very well liked still in the state of Minnesota, state of hockey, I should say.
Yes, yeah. I still don't think Norm Green is really well liked in Minnesota, even now.
But the Stars have definitely done very well and supported and helped support hockey in the South, which have done a fantastic job. I know that my former team, even the Buffalo Sabres, aren't all that happy with the Dallas Stars and
Oh, yeah.
Brett Hull in Prius back in '99, I think that was. So, yeah, a lot of history.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Now, now you mentioned this earlier. You were, of course, your work with GCU is it's not the first time that you've been able to work, here in the Valley and stuff. You worked, for quite a few years at Fox Sports Arizona, and I've seen some of your highlights. I remember seeing some of your highlights. You were talking about the ASU 1996 team that went to the Rose Bowl. That was obviously big news at the time. Just what are some of your favorite experiences from those days?
That was one of them for sure. I was able to call the Duel in the Desert, the annual ASU U of A game with Chuck Cecil and Doug Plank one year, which was fantastic, and enjoyed that and the atmosphere. I think it was the Jake Plummer Nebraska win and going to the Rose Bowl, so that there was a ton of excitement around Arizona State football with Bruce Snyder at the helm. And I think that was definitely a cherished moment. But I also got to work with Jerry Kindle down at the University of Arizona, longtime baseball coach, actually a former Minnesota Twin. So my father knew of Jerry and he knew of my dad. So we were able to call a game while he was alive. So enjoyed that moment. Of course, the Coyotes, back when they moved from Winnipeg, I was right here when they launched Fox Sports Arizona. So we had Coyotes hockey and working with Doug McLeod and Charlie Simmer on those broadcasts. That was fantastic. We had the first whiteout, the excitement of Keith Kachuk and Jeremy Roenick and Nikolai Habibulin. And, there was just a ton of great personalities and great players on that team. And unfortunately, Paul Correa and others they stopped the Coyotes from kind of moving on in the playoffs, unfortunately. And they had some tough playoff exits there, but there was a lot of excitement downtown at then America West Arena. So with all the obstructed seats in the arena, but there was a lot of fun around that. And of course, the Diamondbacks, the expansion draft, prior to the start of Major League Baseball. That was held at the Convention Center downtown, and the selection of the first team for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Travis Lee and the like, Andy Benes. And then I left in 2000, and of course they win it in 2001. So my timing has not been ideal. So
Yeah. But the amazing thing is that you just went through just so much amazing Arizona sports history, and I think that just shows that and I'll say this because this is my opinion. I think Arizona and just Phoenix, are just very underrated in terms of sports, and I think there's a lot of history, here in this city and just across the state.
I agree. I really think that should be probably talked about a little bit more. It is a transient area. People move obviously from all over the country because it's a beautiful place to live, much like I did in '96 when I sent a tape out to Fox Sports Arizona from Buffalo, New York, and I was selected as the first on-air hire at Fox Sports Arizona. So I love the area, but I agree. I think there's a rich tradition of sports, and I know there's a number of people that are trying to carry that torch and try to communicate. And then I didn't even mention, the rich history of Mr. Colangelo and the Phoenix Suns. It's an amazing story. There's a deep, rich history of sports here in the Valley.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing how you just mentioned that you were the first on-air employee hired by Fox Sports Arizona. That's amazing, and it's kind of crazy how Fox Sports, just all the regional networks that they've evolved now. Now we have Bally Sports Arizona. Just kind of as someone who was there at the beginning, what are your thoughts on how things have evolved, since that time?
I don't think I know, and even people within the industry, I think maybe in the last 5 to 7 years, it's been probably the most, maybe it's a strong word, but volatile, disruptive. It's a changing environment. I don't know if it was accelerated because of COVID, but it's definitely a new environment, the one in which it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Back in the day, there was just a ton of energy around those regional sports networks that they had launched. There was a lot of resources too, as they tried to compete with then ESPN, and there were some mistakes early on trying to compete with the likes of ESPN, but I thought they did a really good job. They kind of brought a different approach to how they covered games. But now with the landscape, it's going to be interesting, to see if more professional teams take on ownership of their regional sports networks, much like Ted Leonasis in Washington with Monumental Sports. What Rob Manfred's going to do with Major League Baseball. He's definitely has a pretty big hammer as far as coverage and distribution for those regional sports networks. So, but I think it's still an exciting time to be in this arena. So it'll be interesting though to see how it plays out.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. As you've been mentioning throughout this, you've been able to work with some really cool pro sports teams like the Sabres, the Wild, the Jaguars, the Dolphins. And you've been getting you got a lot of experience, working with all those teams. So what specifically, in your mind, was unique about each experience with each of those teams? And what was that all like?
Yeah, because they were unique, right? I was pretty young when I was first obviously starting out. I started out as kind of a producer, started out in radio, which I think was a huge blessing for me, to kind of paint a picture and really describe action through radio, ad lib a little bit, have the ability to kind of develop my persona, so to speak. So I started out at WIOD Radio in Miami as a producer, and I started to produce some of their pregame shows on the Dolphins. It led me to kind of when they first started sideline reporting, which was kind of interesting back in 1987. I was a bit of a lightning rod on the sidelines because the technical equipment wasn't really up to what it is today. I remember it being on the sidelines for the Dolphins in 1987 in what was Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough for the Patriots, and it rained all day, and I was basically standing in water and kind of holding a a pretty long microphone that was wired with a storm around us. So I'm thinking, I don't know how safe this might be, but and then that propelled me into Buffalo, and I was able to cover AAA baseball and then hockey, which I grew up playing and loving, and then and also covered the Buffalo Bills during their 4 straight trips to the Super Bowl that didn't end very well, but that was a lot of fun in Buffalo around that era. But that was kind of where those were kind of the early stages where, sure, I probably made a few mistakes, but I was getting the repetition. I was doing more and more. I was trying to develop, my on-air, how I was going to deliver. I was asking tons of questions, much like yourself. You're reaching out to people. You might not want to exactly replicate whoever you're speaking to, but what fits, what's comfortable for you as a broadcaster. And that, like when I was in Buffalo, I talked to Mike Lang, longtime voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins, after a game, and he's got a classic voice. He actually might have started, I believe, with Phoenix Firebirds out here years ago. And Mike's just a fantastic person, a legend in Pittsburgh. And I remember I asked him for some advice, and he's like, he didn't give me too much, but he's like, Barry, you need a hook. I've used that a lot when I talk to students, is that you need a hook, right? You need a hook. Everybody kind of needs a hook to kind of separate themselves from the next person. I don't care if you're a broadcaster, but if you're applying for a job, you're probably not the only one that's applying for a position. So what separates you from the other candidate? What sets you apart? I remember going through tapes as a sports director, trying to hire maybe a weekend sports anchor, and I'd have 500 tapes. Okay, make a statement early on, hook me, basically. What separates you from the 499 other tapes that I'm going to look at that really sets you apart as a broadcaster? So I took that advice, and I kind of just took all of this and absorbed all of it over the years, and then I was able to transition into TV, did some TV in Buffalo, and then the Fox Sports Arizona position opened up, and ever since then I've kind of transitioned into TV. I have a tendency to ramble, so I might, if I go through my entire career, we might be here a couple of hours, Sam. So
So what was it like? What was it like for you? Like, really developing your voice, developing that on-camera presence. What was that process like?
Yeah, I think it was, what felt comfortable. I think over time, as I've gotten older, maybe I didn't take some chances, or trying to secure that hook, or trying to find that identity, or sometimes you go out, and I certainly call GCU basketball a little bit different than I would call GCU baseball, or I've called other sports, and I know that I'm representing GCU. If I would work for Bally Sports or for ESPN, I would call a game probably a lot different than I call a GCU basketball game. You don't say Al McCoy saying, he doesn't say Shazam when, LeBron James hits a bucket. I get animated, obviously, when GCU hits a bucket, or obviously wins a game and after trailing from 19 points down, like they did last night. So, yeah, I developed that over time. And I think as I got a little bit older, I probably, took a lot more chances and just maybe developed a little thicker skin. And then it's also really important to get the support of those in management, those executive producers, the general managers that are behind you, the university presidents like President Mueller here, extremely supportive. I'm more than happy for feedback from anybody. And it's always, here at GCU, it's always been positive, and the energy, in that arena, it obviously fuels me. When the booth is up in 103 and the arena is kind of shaking because I'm surrounded by 3,000 to 4,000 Havoc members that are just rocking. It's hard not to kind of gather that enthusiasm and call a game. But I also, over time too, there were certain broadcasters that I really like that. I would feel comfortable like that. I really respected like the Vince Scullys and the Ernie Harwells in Detroit. Ernie had just a phenomenal voice. I didn't really, and of course you can't ask for autographs. But I remember working for the Cleveland Indians, I believe in 94, 95. I did a season there. And I asked Ernie Harwell for his autograph in the Cleveland Indians dugout because I just respected him as a broadcaster and as a storyteller, and much in the same vein as Vin Scully. But then in Buffalo, the Rick Jeanerets, who just retired after 51 years, much like Al McCoy here in Phoenix, just a legend, and how he would approach a game. And he kind of had a radio background, and how his voice and his pace and inflection would increase the closer it got to the opponent's goal. And even if you were listening on your car radio, you knew that they were getting really close to the net, that the excitement level in his voice would elevate. So there were certain aspects of that, and then there's just those signature calls, right? Remember my roommate, Greg Brown in Buffalo, who's now 29 years as the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We were young guys in Buffalo, but we would joke around, because he was friends with Mike Lang, and we'd have those home run calls, and try to get that signature call, right? And then now Greg's been in Pittsburgh forever, and he's a legend, and he raises the Jolly Roger after a win, and it's his signature, it's his hook. So I've tried to absorb all of that and realize that I needed my own identity. I'm not Mike Lang, I'm not Greg Brown, I'm not Rick Jeanneret, but I also want to just emphasize that I try to bring energy, and I pour myself into every game because I know there's 8 trillion options for people going through. And even if they got some guy that's kind of, wow, he just went really crazy after a dunk 3 seconds into the game. Well, I'm probably going to stay. I'm not going to hit my thumb on the remote. I might listen and watch for a little while longer. And maybe I'll be like, oh, well, this is a good game. I'm going to stay here. So that's that part of that hook as a broadcaster. So.
Yeah. Well, I must say your energy hooked me on GCU broadcast. I remember just looking up highlights of the GCU when GCU played ASU. Like I think it was like a couple years back, and it was at GCU, and I was like, holy cow, this broadcast is amazing. I love the enthusiasm on it. So, and I've kind of been following the Lopes ever since. I'm like, yeah, maybe I should start watching this team. They seem pretty fun.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yes. Yeah, and how did you get involved with GCU? Like I said, you've been doing an announce for them for quite a while now. But how did that all come about?
It's all about relationships, right? And Todd Mirko, who is the general manager of Fox Sports Arizona and now at Cronkite, just a huge asset for ASU and Cronkite to have him over there. He was consulting with GCU, and he kind of got the broadcast started. And he called and said, "Hey, would you be interested in meeting President Mueller and maybe be a part of the broadcast we'd like to do?" And I said, "Sure." So I came over. I got the golf cart tour from President Mueller. It doesn't take long to be in his presence to get a feel that he's truly a visionary. I've been around and fortunate enough to be around some other visionaries like Wayne Huizenga, who started Blockbuster Video, and he owned the Marlins and the Dolphins and the Panthers down in Florida, and just a phenomenal human being and a Christian, and the like. So it was amazing what he was talking about and the vision that he had for GCU back in the day, back in 2014, I believe it was when I started the broadcasts, and the enrollment vision that he had for the university. So I started in a broadcast capacity, and then I was just really taken by what was happening here at GCU, and I was at a stage in my career where I kind of wanted to kind of build something, and there was an opportunity to come on board and build out the video team that was here at GCU and create content, create stories. A lot of there aren't a lot of vehicles to be able to tell type of longer form feature stories, especially like local sports or local TV. They're not doing they get 90 seconds max sometimes, and there isn't a lot of programming that has a lot of the longer feature storytelling that is compelling. So we were able to do that for a while here at GCU, and I thought the team did a phenomenal job. So that's where I've secured. Now I'm managing also a media lab here that just opened up on the campus of GCU. So we're starting to crawl. Those early stages of Cronkite. That's probably where we're at right now. But there's a lot of students here that are excited about it. So I'm excited about it.
Oh, that is so awesome. That's amazing to hear about. How are things going at that media lab, kind of so far?
It's great. Yeah, we have some podcast rooms. So students are doing some programming in the podcast rooms. We have a studio, so they'll be doing some newscasts in that studio and a control room. They also, students are part of the stream team in athletics. So they stream well over 100 events a year, whether it's baseball or volleyball or softball, basketball. So they get exposed through that live streaming effort to work on a camera, to direct, to also serve as on-air talent. And then through, I oversee now the broadcasts for GCU, the television broadcast. So students are able to, as we will have two students tomorrow, for instance, come and kind of shadow during our broadcast tomorrow evening. So they get a chance to come into a live production truck. They get to meet, professionals, freelance professionals that work Major League Baseball to the Olympics, to the Phoenix Suns, to the Coyotes. And those are again, the networking opportunities for students to kind of get immersed in an environment where maybe they think they might want to be on air, but wow, this replay, EBS operator, a dream catcher operator. Wow, I could see myself doing this, or also technical directing or producing would be interesting, and what goes into that. So they're exposed to that. So I'm excited about that.
Wow, that's awesome, and it's great to hear that stuff is happening at GCU. I think just adding more great stuff to a university that's still growing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think it also just says a lot for trying to raise the bar overall here in the Valley, right? Between Cronkite and GCU, hopefully we can continue to grow together and be the place to be for future broadcasters.
Yes,
And more importantly, content creators, storytellers, those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's truly awesome to hear about them. That's great that that they know they're kind of leading the way with that, and that's awesome, Barry. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, as we were talking about how you were just getting involved with GCU, what was the first GCU sports event that you called?
I'm sure it was probably one of those early basketball games. The very first season of Dan Marley coming over. A lot of excitement. D1 transition, first year. The unknowns. Trying to build a program. Seeing early on, the excitement on campus around that. Seeing the students really wrap their arms around the program. The formation of what is now just amazing, the Havocs, and some of those student leaders that were a part of the Havocs, and how organically to see a fan base and a student base grow. I think is definitely a blueprint probably for other universities, and some of those early Havoc leaders are out there trying to work with other universities about how to build their student sections and how you do it. And that's part of the excitement of the growth and stuff. But I think it was an early basketball game, and certainly it was 7 years with Coach Marley that was fantastic. The excitement, the energy, the growth, and the foundation that he set here at GCU. I think it's been tremendous. He got a lot out of some players that were given opportunities at a D1 level that maybe they wouldn't have gotten. And I think they probably grew as individuals, that they knew that maybe they were capable of a little bit more. And that had to be an extremely rewarding experience for some of them.
Definitely, and for sure. And like I've been saying, like we've been saying, just the growth that GCU has had, like in their athletics, it's truly amazing, and how quickly it's been. It's just the growth in such a quick time. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a true American success story, I think. I mean, and a lot of it is, somebody that like myself that came from outside of this higher ed environment to kind of just experience it. It's truly remarkable how it's really grown organically through the quality of the students and the sense of community. I think, and even people that come on campus, they kind of are in awe of it. I mean, students opening doors for people, saying please and thank you, and it's funny that we were talking about stuff like that, but it does exist here. There's a wonderful sense of community that's not forced. Those are the part of the staff and the faculty and the students that come to this university. So, yeah, I've at my stage in my career and what I'm doing right now, I don't. This is a really nice place to be.
I would definitely agree with you. What in your opinion makes GCU such a wonderful community to be a part of, and what does it mean to you specifically to be a part of this community?
Well, for me, it's just wonderful because I feel like I have the support. In some positions, maybe, it's all about people, right? It's about relationships, and who you work with and for. I've been part of the GCU broadcast. This is my 10th season. And I can't believe it's been 10 seasons. It's gone by so fast, but it's because I've always gotten the support of President Mueller and university leadership. The students have been a part of it. But it's also it's great because it kind of brings in a bit of an athletic feel because it seems like a team environment. Everybody pulls together around like game day experience, whether it is the Havocs, events crew. The meetings at point, even in pre-COVID. I mean, some of the meetings or planning meetings, there was 75 people in those rooms. Everyone had a voice. I've been part of pro teams where there's definitely some people that would not have been in these meetings with the Miami Dolphins. And it was a very tall structure where at GCU, it's a bit flatter. So people have an opportunity if they work hard here, and they also have an opportunity to share their ideas, which I think is just a great novel idea that people have a voice and people will actually allow you to speak and allow you to present it. Yeah, it may not, find any traction, but it might. I'm sure a number of them have, and the Havocs and those student leaders, they're part of that now 3,000 to 4,000 students every game. They definitely have a voice, and President Mueller will ask, whether it's even a T-shirt designed. Students, what would you like as a food option on this campus? Okay, you want a Taco Bell? Well, we're getting a Taco Bell. That it's just a very enlightening environment that I truly haven't probably been exposed to very often in my career.
Yeah, it's truly a great community, and I've been to a couple GCU basketball games, and every time I go, I love it, and I love getting to go around the campus and just see all just the students and just everyone just seems to be having such a fun time, positive vibes all around. It's really cool to be a part of.
Why not, man? These are your college years, right? This is where you enjoy yourself. This is where you hopefully forge lifelong friendships. This is where, if you're a broadcaster, you try to get immersed in as much as you can do, and you make mistakes, and you keep pushing, and you make some more mistakes, and you learn from those mistakes, and that's where you hone your skills. And that's why I try to tell students that these next 3-4 years that you're here, and if you're broadcasting and part of the live streams or doing some coursework and creating some programming, whether it's a podcast or a studio show, collaborate with other students, make mistakes, try some things, take some chances. But this is this is no better time of your life than right now.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And just kind of going off of that, what would you say is the most important advice that you would give to aspiring broadcasters today?
Don't be afraid. Take some chances. Be respectful. Obviously, there's so much that I could, from an advice standpoint. When I was younger, we didn't have like LinkedIn or these types of opportunities. To be able to speak to people within the industry. I enjoyed your interview with Barry Tompkins, who definitely somebody I really respect. It's just it's reaching out, it's networking, it's taking chances, it's making mistakes, growing from those mistakes, being respectful of others, because you will work with others, and it can be a grind if you're doing 162 baseball games and that crew is, there's some bad eggs in that crew. It makes for a really long season. So be nice to people. But yeah, I mean, I would just pour yourself into it, take some chances, lean in too. Sometimes I will see others that, well, this class just started and I'm a senior. Well, it just started and you're a senior, so pour yourself into it. Do you have a LinkedIn account? No. Well, I got a friend request later that night from that student, for LinkedIn. So it's a very competitive environment, broadcasting. Yes, you need a hook. You need to be leaning forward. You need to participate. You need to just keep grinding, because rejection is definitely a big part of broadcasting. You need to develop a thicker skin. It's very subjective. It's not objective. It's not an accountant where debits and credits equal and you call it a day and you're fine. I don't like how he looks. I don't like his voice. He's too loud. His hair is crazy. There's just a number of different things, just from a subjective standpoint, that can be impacted on a decision and a hiring process. And you just, if you find that position and it works out, it's usually a pretty good fit. So I could go on and on about different things, as far as advice or stuff like that, but just be nice to people, and develop relationships, because ultimately that's truly what it's all about at the end of the day. When I look back over my career, it's all the people that I met. I really like, when you talk about games and stuff. Yes, talk about like a triple overtime game winning, that it was at 2:30 in the morning, or even last night. At the end of the day, when it's over, I'll just think about the people that I worked with last night. The Scott Williams, who's just a phenomenal person, the Kate Longworths, the people that are direct and produce and do phenomenal work. Because we all need to pull together to create that, especially for TV. Those are the relationships. Those early days in radio, I still have friends. I couldn't really tell you too much about. Yeah, okay, we went to 4 Super Bowls and the Sabres games and stuff like that. But it's all the people. That's the people I still communicate with, and that started families. Now their kids are married and stuff like that of their own. So it's those relationships that can kind of propel you, and that's what really sticks out to me at the end of the day.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. Sometimes it's those connections that you make with people, and that ends up being the most memorable stuff, even more so than the action going on the field or a court or whatever. It's really those, like you said, those relationships, those connections with people.
Yeah, and you can meet somebody when you're first starting out, and then suddenly, maybe they have a position that's just starting out, but maybe a couple levels higher than you, but then they end up, like Mike Connolly, who ended up being the executive producer at Fox Sports Arizona. Now he's a senior vice president of programming for Bally Sports Arizona and runs all of the regional sports networks. And I've known Mike for a number of years, and those types of relationships. That he's not the only one. I mean, there's just a number of people that I've met along the way that have gone on to bigger and better things. And then we reconnect later on. We were working in Arizona, and then I went up to Minnesota, and then Mike's, hey, do you want to host the TV pregame? I'm like, okay. It was one of those things where, yeah, because he knew me. And a lot of times too, it's so frenetic. A lot of decisions are made very quickly, and those people that that you can trust and know that they'll be there, they'll be accountable, they'll show up, they'll do their homework, and they'll represent you and maybe the network or the team in an exemplary fashion. You're going to go to that person like 100%.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And and I think it's just amazing that throughout your career that that you have made those connections, and you've been able to use those connections, make those great relationships with people, all while you were just creating incredible memories through your broadcasting, and and just making some incredible calls can be part of amazing moments. Just doing it all at the same time. You've had one amazing career, Barry, and there's still so much more to go.
That's true. And Mike told me one time, I'm referencing him quite a bit. He'd probably enjoy it. He said that knowledge is power. And it was just kind of maybe a flippant thing. He maybe wanted me to learn a little bit more about some of the equipment or the camera. And I just I remember that over time. And then when I worked for the Miami Dolphins, I would listen to, I remember that comment where knowledge is power. And that's where I realized that, even as a broadcaster, there's so much more that any human being is capable of doing. We're just, and for anybody to maybe pigeonhole you into one particular, I remember, oh, you're a hockey guy. I'm like, well, because I'm calling hockey right now, but I can do baseball, I could do basketball. It's just like people have a perception of you and they suddenly label you as you're that guy. But it was great at the Dolphins because I felt like I can do a lot more. I'm capable of a lot more. So what was great there is that they allowed me to be immersed in and I was involved and integrated across the platform. So I was actually in marketing too, but I also hosted their radio pregame shows. I covered for their website. I do interviews and press conferences and travel on the road. But I also was involved in marketing efforts, public relations, community relations. So that part of the experience was invaluable to me. I also negotiated preseason television agreements in secondary markets in West Palm Beach and in Fort Myers, and then also built out their largest statewide radio network at the time. So that was something they allowed me to do. And then obviously that parlayed into actually being a general manager of a regional sports network that was launching up in the Midwest. So that part of it, and new challenges, that's exciting. But I think any person or any broadcaster, I think any person continuing in this field realize that you're capable of a lot more, and don't hesitate to take some chances, even if it brings a little bit of discomfort, because again, it makes you more valuable.
Yes, and I mean that's amazing that you're not just an announcer. You're even getting involved in the business side of things, and you're like getting well versed in that. I think again, like you said, being able to be well versed in a variety of roles and being able to like see different sides of just the industry. I think that's awesome stuff.
What's great is I oversee the TV broadcast at GCU, so I negotiate our carriage agreements for the Fox 10 Extra, KUTP here. So I negotiate that deal. Also our production truck, our crewing, radio broadcast agreements. So I oversee all that. So sometimes it's good if you're basically kind of reporting to yourself. It's not a bad thing. So.
Yeah, I would definitely agree there. It's not a bad thing at all.
No, not at all.
But gosh, Barry, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm truly an honor to be talking with an absolute legend truly an honor.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best at Cronkite, and I'm going to follow your career. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you so much, sir. And obviously I will continue to follow your amazing work with the Lopes, and hopefully GCU can get back to the March Madness tournament this year.
That would be a lot of fun. Thanks, Sam.
Absolutely, Barry. You take care now.
Bye-bye.